I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
If you would like to get your song reviewed, dear listener, there's the Filthy Capitalist option. As Sori says, 125 gets you straight to the head of the line. You don't have to be a part of the alliance. You don't have to be part of the group.
Wait a minute.
And the biggest thing is you don't have to wait. You hop, skip, and jump right in front of everybody. 125 gets you there. You do that 3 times, and then get mashed down to the $75 rate for perpetuity.
Yes!
Also, there is a band review option. So if you've got a band and you're trying to get your band some exposure, hit me up at insori@gmail.com, and I'll show you the details about how to pull that off.
You can also jump on Patreon, and there is a option on the tiers to be able to get your band reviewed. Yep. Obviously, we can't lie to you, so we can't guarantee a positive review. Get what you get.
It's just rubbish.
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 That's British for garbage.
My favorite is the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in at Patreon. You get to join an alliance. The alliance joins their points together, and that helps determine what songs that we do.
The alliances hang out on Discord.
Message me on Patreon to get the link.
And they do all kinds of other cool things. They do Minecraft, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. It's really a community within the community. Anybody can go on the village, facebook.com/Vin and Sori. There's 160,000+ people on the channel. What's cool about the Discord is that it offers a real opportunity for community connection, friendship, that type of thing.
And it's on Discord, so if you're not a Facebook person, it's for you.
You start off at $1.
Right.
Plus you get exclusives. Sori and I are working on a song. So the first 15 seconds of that was on Patreon. Also, at $15 tier and above, when we actually debut the video, they're going to be there live with us. There you are, dear listener.
Buy our merch. Buy our merch.
Child shall lead them to buy our merch.
Yes, here we are on the DJ stream, another one for the Lone Rider.
Yes, sir.
And this song that he picked is Il Nino-Unframed. El Nino. Unframed.
Il Nino.
Il Nino.
That's a play on a word for El Nino, but go ahead.
So it's he said another first time listen of a new metal favorite band of mine. That's a pretty good song, and will be a good discussion, I'm sure. So
yes, and if you're interested in timely topical political commentary, you can hit me up in Middle America, Vin and Sori. We're gonna have a special guest.
You guys are going to like it. Did you see that bumper sticker I saw today?
No.
I posted it on Middle America. Rude. Okay, so we are about to go into this. The last few songs have been pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, they've created some very fascinating discussion. So this one should be really interesting. Here we go. Il Nino. What did we say the name of the song? There it is. Unframed. You got the lyrics?
Yeah, I do. Here we go. You'll like the cover. Look at that cover.
I'm feeling like I don't belong.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when we spoke back then. I was cold and insincere. I was just 19 and so naive. need to take my life back. You were nothing. You did not care. I'm not myself. I need to get my life. I need to take my life back. You were nothing. You did not care. I'm not myself. I need to get my life. I need to take my life back. I've seen your face in pictures unframed. I've seen your face in pictures unframed. I've seen your face in pictures with names that never were framed. I've seen your face in pictures with names that never were framed. That never were framed. Who am I? Who am I today?
Wow. Boy, that's a sad one.
Yeah, these guys are brutal in the comment section. There's not an original bone in this song's body.
Oh.
It's a new metal song, sir.
Sounds like a Hot Topic store song. Actually,
It's new
yeah,
metal.
I think that it kind of sounds like something I would have heard when I was more like a teenager, when I would kind of go in my own car. But I liked the song. I think it was a sad sort of thing. And I've seen, so obviously this kid never knew his father. He only saw pictures of his dad that weren't framed. They were just like pictures that were taken. They were never framed. It looks like the mother, he says, I can't place the blame. You gave her pain, but she lied to me for years. So,
Well, that is one of the things that is actually extremely unique about this song, because most of the times the young I'm angry at my dad song, whether it's Tupac, whether it's metal, it's always, oh,
Just
you
focus on
suck,
the dad.
blah, 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 blah. This one is a little bit nuanced. I can't place the blame. You gave her pain, but she lied to me for years.
yep.
And that is, when you're a teenager, you know, it's almost par for the course. You're gonna have different ideas about how well your parents did in parenting you than they will, generally speaking. Unless you're like me, in which case, I'm constantly asking them for updates and all that. But life is so simple a lot of times for teenagers. Your parents suck, they're bad, everybody's treating you unfair, blah, blah, blah. When you become an adult, and it's so funny, I've seen it happen multiple times, even with famous people. So Corey Taylor, for example, he did this song called Eyeless. It was about his dad. We actually covered it here. And, he was really angry at his dad, yada, yada, yada. And then he meets his dad later on in life. And then he goes, yeah, we got a good relationship now. And there's things, I didn't understand, whatever. Same thing with Jay-Z. Jay-Z never had his dad. It's really unfortunate. He met his dad, and then his dad died a year later, something like that.
Oh my gosh.
So they always do that. You write the angry songs at first, and then later on, as you become a man, have kids of your own, it changes things. I remember when I got my first F, Dad gave me a black eye. Lesson learned. Next time I got an F, I took the report card to my mom instead. Let her take the hit. Jeez.
Wow, that's terrible.
Well, I mean, I see past a lot of Ben Webb's, stuff, and there's a lot of pain there. But it's one of those real. I think there are a lot of parents who in the relationships don't work out for whatever reason. But bashing the other parent to the kid makes you feel great to the parent, because now I got this kid on my side. And usually in divorces it's so acerbic that everybody has to take a side. You really don't, but everybody has to take a side. And so it becomes like I want more numbers. So now we're gonna say all these horrible things to this kid about their dad, so that I can have this person on my side, and they don't understand mentally what that does to the child. like it's one of the most selfish things that you see parents do with kids is say that. So for him to say, yeah, man, you were not good to my mom. You caused her pain. However, she lied to me for years. And there's a lot of parents have a very, 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 very hard time with that. That becomes a serious problem.
Yeah.
Because it's like parents have a hard time saying, okay, this jihad, this war is between X and Y. This kid is not in any war, and we don't need to make him choose a side because he's still the son of X and Y. But, they're just so busy trying to, murder each other that they're missing out that the ultimate victim is the kid, because odds are that the dad is going to find somebody else and the woman's going to find someone else. They're going to move on. They're going to have another husband, another wife. The kid's not going to get another parent. Like, you can have a step parent, but the kid's not going to have another parent. So that comes with a lot of lies, especially for young men in regard to their fathers. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows how I feel about my mom, but I completely and totally, forgive my mother for everything. But the narrative that I got was about, my dad was not accurate. And it cost decades of time that I could have had to reconcile with my dad. It cost me a lot of time with my dad. And, look, at some point, it's like, well, you're a grown man, you know what I'm saying? Like, I knew the truth of what happened. I'm being intentionally vague here, but I knew the truth about what happened since I was 18 years old. So it took me a very long time to really, absorb that and whatever. So I'm not going to blame my mom for all that, but it's like, holy shit, Ma. Mm-hmm. I remember one time, my brother was saying something, they were fighting, and she said, "You look just like your father." But it was like, not in a
positive
good,
way.
not in a positive sense. It's in a negative sense. And I'm like, well, shit, man, I don't want to look like him. As a kid, mm-hmm. and now it's like crazy because, I'm in the same position. I'm divorced and things did not, things were difficult as you guys know, but it's weird because there are times I'm like, oh shit, Zoe, that is something Wandalee would do, like that thing right there, but mm-hmm. man. But it doesn't. But see, we've been able to talk, and we're at peace with each other to a degree, I think. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, something pops up. We go to war. But I'm glad that where the relationship is, I don't have those negative feelings, so that when I do see those moments where they look like their mom, that I don't go crazy. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Or it doesn't trigger me to take out. Because I think there were times when my brother bore the wrath just because he reminded her of my dad.
Yikes.
I'll just say it that way. So yeah, I mean, that to me is like the main reason I really enjoyed the song. And then, and then he said in the lyrics something to the effect of like, "You were the only one that could have turned me around," or something like that. My father's one and only call is what could have saved me. There mm-hmm. it is right there. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like, I see it more, with Dorian after having a couple kids, it's like, there are some things where like, he just needs to talk to me, mm-hmm. Where it's just me and him need to have a conversation. Yeah. And it makes me like retroactively look back to my past and go,
there must have been times where you needed
that. What would have been different about my life if I would have had my dad to be able to, have those conversations and to be the kind of person that can influence you to that point. Like, because it's hard. It's hard to influence young men, man. It's very, very difficult to influence young men. And that's honestly like a major burden that single moms have, especially single moms, from the hood. These guys are Hispanic, so they probably came up in a similar environment I did. Like, that's very difficult for a woman to be, like, everybody knows the impact my mom had on me, for sure, but there is a lot she could not do when I became a teenager. Especially, in New York City, where all those things are at 10, like how to handle violence, how to handle sexuality, how to handle police, how to handle drugs, how to handle gangbangers, how to like it's insane to me. Like, I think about, my kids in that situation, figuring that shit out on the fly. I'm like, how the hell?
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen? So, yeah. Fathers, and fathers are undervalued in our current zeitgeist. Fathers are undervalued, but man, I'll tell you what, you get a good, strong dad in there, the kid's in good shape. The whole family's in good shape. You don't, you reap the whirlwind. Holy moly.
I think when he says, like, I'm feeling like I don't belong, for one thing, belonging is something that's super important to a lot of people. And most everyone.
To a degree.
Most everyone, yeah. And so you kind of hit a point in your life where you're like, where did I come from? Where are my roots? And that's why, like, the Ancestry 21 or whatever it is, where it tells you, like, where are your roots from? That's why these people are probably making a killing off of that, is because we've become so separated from our history and our legacy. And so we kind of want to know, where have we been? Who is our family? Who else is in our family? And he says, I remember when we spoke back then, I was cold and insincere. And I think that he said, I was just 19 and so naive and didn't care what you feel. So he was just, like you kind of said before, you're kind of looking at that person like they're disposable, like that person hurt you, you push them away. And that's kind of how he was feeling with his dad. But then as he got older, then he realized that his father did have a lot of value to him. And then he needed to hear from his dad. And when stuff got really bad, he needed to hear from his dad, and the call didn't come from him. And then he talks about how much it hurt to see, like, she never framed the picture of the dad. And then he talks, it just sounds like he was going through a lot. There was a lot of pain that he felt. I do think that, I don't have this situation. I had both my parents growing up, maybe not to the degree or the way that I wanted, but I still had both of them there. And I think that there kind of comes a point. So I had a friend who both of her parents had gotten into drugs when she was a kid. And so she got taken away and put into the state. And then the state from there kept putting her in foster care. And she kept bouncing from house to house. It was not a good situation for her. And I remember her, like, desperately looking for her parents for years, and her talking to me about it when we were in college. And I was like, well, maybe you'll find them, and just seeing that like pain in her, just wanting to find her parents, it was like as if she was 6 years old and still like lost in a store looking for her parents. And it was painful to watch. So time went forward. She ended up finding her mother. And her mother came to stay with her for a while, but her mother was still an addict. So her mother used her as a resource and just took from her until she finally had to tell her mother, you need to leave, because she had kids of her own, which was also really painful for her to have to finally get her mom back in her life and then have to tell her mom, look, you got to go. She's still currently looking for her dad. She hasn't seen him. I don't know if he's still around or not, but it really, really hamstrings her, if that's the great phrase. She's having a really, really hard time with it. And I think that a lot of times, because we're tied to our parents, their mistakes become what kind of pulls us down. And there is a point where it's important to kind of like walk through that stuff, the muck of all that, and figure out where you were damaged by your parents, but then find ways to move forward from that, because it will destroy you if you keep just living in the sorrow of the past. So, you know, like obviously this guy is kind of going through that, and it's extremely painful. And I just think, like, he says, who am I today? And I think, like, he's going to have to find his identity and not keep, like, he isn't what his parents did to him. He is more than that. So whatever his parents did or however they treated him obviously affected him to this day. But he has to find a way to take that and kind of, like, say, okay, that's not me. I'm more than that. And hopefully, you know, he gets surrounded with the right people that speak to him the truth, and then he can kind of, you know, I don't think you fully heal from stuff like that.
Well, Corey, I think, has the mega balanced perspective here. So the first thing he says is, my dad was a biker, carried a gun, and was abusive. I wanted to fight him, but I'd be the first one he'd shoot. Had to take it on the chin until he died.
Wow.
Right? And then, like... He later on says, even through the abuse of my dad, he taught me billiards and to be mentally tough. Both have made me a lot of money. Now I'm the father of 2 daughters that I've never raised a hand to because they've never deserved it. And I couldn't if I wanted to due to the memories of my dad. So, like, that is, like, the perfect, in my opinion, you know, healthy way of dealing with that. And the Bible says it. It says, look, your parents... You know, Hebrews 12, it basically says, look, your parents discipline you the best they knew how to, and because they're sinners, they're going to fuck up. Mm-hmm. So your parents are just take it as a given. Your parents fucked up. They over-disciplined or they under-disciplined you, but God is a perfect father, etc., etc. So, like, if I tell myself, okay, the only perfect father is God, then that means that I should expect my dad to screw up. It's just a matter of how bad, right? And then the question is, did they do anything positive at all in your life? And so for him to say this dude was mega abusive, you know, horrible person, true, but simultaneously to that say, hey, he taught me this, this, and that. Look, again, I'm not saying, like, you need to do that because the Bible says honor your father. I just think it's the most healthy thing. I've seen people carry those grudges and hatred toward their parents, and I'm sorry, but it doesn't convert into anything positive in the actual world.
I think a lot of times it gives people excuses to be horrible to other people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Corey's got, but again, it's that balance and that wisdom that comes with age. And having a couple yourself, and you go, okay, all right. But sometimes, like, it's weird because having kids of your own makes you go, okay, I understand why my parents did that. But it also makes you say, how the hell could they do that? Like, there's so many things now that I'm a parent, I'm like, I cannot believe my mom did that. Like my mom, like, I remember, you know, we first moved to the Bronx. Like, I mean, it was, you know, it was a big city. I mean, we lived in Florida and New Jersey, but there's nothing like it. And the public transportation, so they would give us a Metro card. So I used to tell Mom, it's like, Mom, I don't know if I'm gonna, like, take the right bus. Like, I don't know how to figure out the system. She's like, oh, don't worry about it. Go on. So sure enough, like, the first time I took the bus back home, I literally took 5 hours because I drove all the way to Brooklyn. I took I think it was a 22 or the 11 bus, and I ended up in Brooklyn, and I'm like, yo, this is not, he's like, where do you live? I'm like, he's like, yo, that's in the Bronx, bro. He's like, you just stay on because we're changing shifts. And, like, I made it home like 5 hours later, and my mom was like, oh, I knew you were going to land on your feet. Come, have dinner.
Oh my gosh.
There's no phones. There's no, you know, whatever. Like, she had no idea where I was. She just
You think she was panicking at all?
No, I've seen my mom when she's panicky. Usually when my mom was panicky, especially if it was me, she'd get angry at me. Because she,
so
you know.
Bad.
But,
yeah.
I mean, so there's a lot of things, like, I would never, like, it made me more confused. But there's other times, like, after you have kids, you go, oh, okay, that's why Mom and Dad were like that. So, anyway, I really like the song. I think it you know, Yeah, I think Corey just said it the best, and that's the way to handle it, because you have to acknowledge that your parents are sinners, and you have to, and here's the other thing, to the degree that you can forgive your dad or your mom for their mistakes, it'll be easier for you to forgive yourself when you screw up with your kids.
Well, that's true, yeah. Yep.
Because the mind can't deal with that kind of cognitive dissonance. Your mind is going to say, well, we're doing the same thing, so you didn't let it go for your mom and dad, so how are we going to let this go with ourselves? And then you can't forgive yourself. And I'll tell you what, there's nothing more guilt-inducing in the mind of anyone, including even a guy like Ben Webb, than parenting.
And if you...
That's a damn guilt machine if you don't figure out how to do that shit properly.
And like living in guilt day after day after day, it just will literally tear you to pieces. You have to have a break. So the only way to have a break is if you actually can, assess the situation and be able to forgive the other people and give yourself a break and stuff like that. So, know your weaknesses. Anyway, what do you...
Yeah, this is a good question. Vin, as a Christian, do you believe that the biblical grounds for divorce strictly means physical infidelity, or is abuse or alcoholism considered that? So there's a couple things. One, Jesus says, except for porneia, which is marital unfaithfulness. But there's an interesting thought process. So in the Old Testament, if you got yourself into heavy debt, you could sell yourself into slavery until you paid off the debt. But there was one catch. If the person abused the debtor or the slave, that person that dissolved the contract and they were able to go free. So the logic is, when Jesus gave that injunction, there was no debate about what should happen to a person who was being beaten and abused. Now, I will say, in Jesus' seats in Laban, it wasn't very common to put your hands on a woman, because they had a lot of laws for propriety and things of that nature. And the second thing is, divorce was so easy. I mean, they had super no-fault divorce, like you could burn your toast and it's the end of the world. There was it wasn't a rampant situation like we have today, where men are just beating the hell out of their wives and all the rest of it. However, the logic is, look, that was an unthinkable thing, and so Jesus doesn't have to mention it in the same way that he doesn't mention anything about sexual assault explicitly. He doesn't mention anything about, people hurting children. He doesn't he because there are some laws that are like, man, we know that already. So what I would say is, if a person is being abused to the point where their life is in danger and their kids' lives are in danger, staying in that situation is sinful, in the sense that the person doing the abusing is being empowered and enabled to sin. And so it appears to be the loving thing to do and stick it out, and that's a big thing in evangelicalism. Is almost just like this worship of marriage, like stay in the marriage no matter what happens, no matter how horrible he is, no matter if your daughter's getting abused, blah blah blah. I think you can make a biblical case that says, look, women are the pinnacle of creation from a biblical worldview, and so much so that all of humanity is styled as a woman in the end of the Bible. So, for good or evil. So, to treat a woman worse than a slave would be treated is unthinkable from a biblical perspective. So that's how I'd answer that question. And it is relevant to this song for obvious reasons. I would say, though, if you marry somebody, you make that commitment, do your best to follow through on that commitment, insofar as you're not being an enabler of a sinful, abusive, evil motherfucker. So that's the Vin translation. That's the best I could do for y'all. Okay. What do you give the song?
Ooh, you go first.
I'm gonna give this song. I really enjoyed the song. A 9.3. I love new metal. It's how I came up, and again, another pretty deep conversation. Not a lot of lyrics in this song, but the choice selection and the rhyme schemes were pretty impactful. So that's where I'm at with it.
9.2 for me.
There you are, dear listener. Having said that, Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.